Today's guest is Rayhan Sudrajat, an Indonesian ethnomusicologist and musician who is also known as Baséput, his electronic music project. Baséput's idea is to link between the voices and instruments of the indigenous people and the modular synthesizer to create a new form of experience in the modular world. Baséput hopes to connect between the legacies and the messages of the ancestors from the past in the futuristic modern world. My name is Giovanni Grandi, and this is Let's Talk Music with Frap Tools.
Thank you for the opportunity, Giovanni, by the way.
Well, thank you very much for being with us today, Rayhan. It's a real pleasure. I would like to start right away by talking a bit more, if you want, about your musical journey. It's quite an extended one.
Sure, that'll be great. Yes, please. Yeah.
So how did you started with music, and how did you end up where you are right now, both in terms of artistic direction and also why you end up playing the modular synthesizer as your instrument of choice?
So the first one, I started music when I was 12 years old. I play pop music. It's a bit popular. Of course, you know the Beatles. And I listened to I Wanna Hold Your Hand, Yesterday, Hey Jude, the famous songs from them. And then I started the band and then bought my first guitar. And then from there, I listened to the alternative and then shoegaze and then like Britpop. Of course, Indonesia at that time has many influence from Britpop and American bands as well. I think it's in the beginning of 2000-ish. And then play Radiohead cover songs and stuff as a band in the senior and junior high school. And then after that, time goes by. In a short story, I went to Melbourne to continue my master degree in there.
Sorry, where was your first experience as a musician based? Where, like in Bandung?
Oh, yeah, in Bandung. Yeah, in Bandung. Yes, yeah, I was born and raised in Bandung at that time. So since kindergarten and then my bachelor degree, and I finished my bachelor in Bandung. And I went to Melbourne in 2018 in Monash University, continue masters in ethnomusicology and musicology. And right in Melbourne, I went to many places like a music store in Melbourne, of course, Found Sound and other musical instruments as well. And then I found one community called Aussie Wigglers. And then, yes, the magics happened there, and I started to build my first modular synthesizer in 2019, right in the middle of my master degree. You know what? Because the intention at the first time to start at modular synthesizer is not the musical things, but it's actually in the middle of my research. I get bored and I get easily stressed because of the research, because I took master by research studies in Melbourne, and then I get easily stressed because of the journals and everything. And right in the middle, I found the modular synthesizer. When I tried to patch the cable from one model to model, it's just reduce my stress level. Because I think it's very make me calm at that time, because when I patch this one and my sensory hand and then sensory play and everything, it's become I get easily cheer up by playing a modular synthesizer, by playing the cables and the knobs, and I can continue my research in university. So I think the intention at that time is to bring my anxious level or stress level become more manageable in the middle of my research. So it's not quite common to start a modular synthesizer, because for some reason maybe other people start because like the music or like the sound and then like the timbre of the oscillators and stuff. But I think at that point I started to like, because of it can make me calm in the middle of my research.
Wow, that's fascinating. And what was your research about at that time?
Yeah, it's actually about the death ritual. So my research held in Kalimantan Island, the third biggest island in the world, or called Borneo internationally. So I identify about the function of the meaning of the gong, like the big gong, because in the death ritual, gongs is always used in the middle of a ritual, in the initial ritual and the end of ritual. So I become more interested with the gong itself and what is the function and meaning, why the people in there have to use the gong for the ritual, for the as not only as the musical instrument, but also the gong is also used as the place to store the bloods from the animals, which is already sacrificed, for example, buffaloes, and then chicken, and then pigs and stuff. So I think, wow, this musical instrument is not only as a musical instrument that being played by the people in the village or in the island, but also as the tools, which is very important in their ritual. So I think that's my curiosity at that time, and I also interested to research about the as become my research in master degree.
Wow, that is very fascinating, and I have an impression, a suggestion from this story, which you tell me if it's a bit too far-fetched, but I see a kind of an analogy between the instruments you were studying and the modular synthesizer for you, which is not just a musical instrument, but a tool for a ritual, because, you know, your ritual of calming yourself and bringing your anxiety down.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Giovanni. I think that's really true because I not only use or see music or musical instrument as a tool itself, but I think it's also one of my body's extension. For example, I have a hands or I have a feet, but when I see a guitar, for example, when I see modular instrument, or maybe when I see drums, for example, other musical instrument, I see them as the extension of my body. So I think when I play with them, I become into one with the musical instrument and also with modular synthesizer. And I think that's also bring me to become as one with the musical instrument. It's not separated, I think. And also continuing what you've also said, it's true that, yeah, I think playing modular instrument is become my ritual to be like, deeply connected with the musical instruments itself. Because at the first time I play bass, I play guitar and drums, there's always something has to be hit or strum, or it has to be, like a violin or cello. But playing with modular synthesizer for me, I think it has to be change my perspective at that time. I have to playing with the cables, and I have to playing with the knobs and how to produce a sound with the cables and sound. I think at the first time for me that was a challenge to produce a sound, which is until now my music you can also listen to in Spotify or Bandcamps, which is, I think the journey to there, I think it's quite far. And also long and winding road, as the Beatles said, because when I think Frap Tools, of course, I have to say that USTA, I think it's very, it's very true that it's my first Frap Tools, and of course that'll be the first sequencer I use, and I'm become unseparated with the Frap Tools, especially with the USTA itself, because I can imagine if I have to compose in modular synthesizer without USTA, I think I cannot imagine that. So I think it's just become one.
Yeah, that was part of the original design, to treat the instrument as an extension of the artist's mind, because the whole point, I think, in making music and making art as a whole is that you need to waste the least amount of time between your idea and your production.
That's true. That's true.
This very ordinary term, but. And thinking about instruments, and you mentioned that you came from the pop music and Brit-pop music, but you also play traditional music. Am I right?
That's right. Yes.
And is it something that you have been trained like from your childhood, or is something that you approached at a later stage?
Oh, that's interesting question because when I was playing traditional music, the first one is like a zither. It's called kecapi from Sundanese ethnic group in West Java where I grew up. So it's quite. It has 8 strings, and we have to play that like a piano in there, but we have to play the left hand with the bass and right hand as a melody, and then it's become more. I think it was quite hard for me to play that instrument, but I think I was 15 years old at that time, so it's not quite small at that time. But I think 15 years old is to bring me the understanding, because I think my dad and also my mom's also let me to took a course of the kecapi, and then I also play flute, it's called suling in Sundanese name, and because of I played that instrument, I've been to Belgium at that time, 2008, and France, and also to Luxembourg, and then to Netherlands in Utrecht. I tour with the Indonesian embassy to promote Indonesian tourism at that time. So I was 18 years old, and it brings me that, oh, okay, so with playing traditional music, and also can show about my identity to the world. Because, for example, if I playing guitar, for example, if I bring that to America, for example, of course, people already know guitar, and then people already know about this instrument. But I play kecapi and I play suling, and I bring that to Europe, for example. Of course, people doesn't know that before. So I think at that time, I believe that, oh, if I play traditional music, I can bring my identity and I can introduce the instrument, which people maybe doesn't know before. So I think that's the intention, to play traditional music compared to the like Britpop or modern and pop music. And with that, it brings me understanding that, okay, I have to still play traditional music, but also I have to play and also have to understand about other music, which is global, so I can incorporate that with my music. So that's what happened with Baséput, because I play modular synthesizer. That's a futuristic musical instrument, I can say. But the idea and the core idea of Baséput is to bring the legacy or bring the message of the ancestor in the form of Eurorack or modular synthesizer. So that's why the samples and the sound and the scales, by the help of Frap Tools USTA, I can bring that tonality, I can bring the scales of the traditional music, which is I played on in West Java and Kalimantan. So that's really suits with my idea of playing music with Baséput, Giovanni.
Excellent. I was about to drive the conversation towards Baséput, that because it is your the project where the electronic music is involved, and I have a question, and I'm not sure if I will be able to phrase it properly. But when you mentioned the ancestors, you also mentioned other, let's say, tradition other than the Western Java where you come from, because we know that Indonesia is quite vast and there are a lot of ethnic groups with different tradition and different musical traditions. And I was curious to know, how do you approach those traditions and those ancestors, or in other words, do the ancestors need to be your ancestors to be featured in Baséput?
Interesting. So I spent years, not only years. I've been researching, and also I've been research about the people of, especially about the Kalimantan people, for more than 9 years until now. I think it's 10 years. Yeah. It's almost 10 years. So that my initial research in 2014 to Kalimantan. So I went back and forth to Kalimantan and then to Bandung, Kalimantan to Bandung. So I think it's really important for me to stay in the place and to communicate in the place. It's not only like, of course, like ethnomusicologists, like have to go to the area and then stay like 1 or 2 weeks and then go again and then be research and that. And I have to live with them. I have to understand about the identity. I have to understand about the ideology. I have to understand why these people play this instrument in the field, not in the, for example, in a home. Why they play this instrument towards the sunrise, not on the sunset, for example. So I think that ideas and that messages and the ideologies, I have to understand that deeply rooted. So I have to spend, I've been spent like months or maybe even years in the field. So it brings me the understanding of their ancestor, for example. So I can speak their language now. I can speak their 3 languages and 3 dialects now in Kalimantan, because Kalimantan has more than 58 dialects, which has different languages as well. So I can only speak 3 languages of them, the Katingan and the Ngajunese and also the Otdanum. But of course, to understand their languages, it brings me the understanding of their culture as well. Because, for example, if I learn how to speak Italian, for example, Italian, of course. Is it Italy or Italian? Speak Italian.
Yeah, Italian.
Italian, of course.
Italian.
When I speak Italian, for example, indirectly, I can also understand about the culture itself. So I think it brings me a lot of, not only the culture, the culinary, for example, it can bring me also why these people also act differently with other ethnic groups, for example. So I think the first thing first, I have to spend a year or months in there. So it can brings me the understanding, how this is how the ancestors also think, and their ancestors also think. Because back in the past, everything is connected. As the Austronesian people, for example, Kalimantan and Sundanese and West Java, it becomes one island. But because of the water level of the sea level is also up, and the down area is also being drowned by the water and become separated by the geographical aspects. But I think at the moment, at that time, in the past, everything is connected. So that's why the languages, the culture, the customary law has also similarities between them. So I think it's not quite difficult for me at that time to understand and also to make sense about the ancestors, and then also the idea of the ethnic group in Indonesia.
Wow, beautiful answer. I love this idea of culture as being a matter of education and understanding, rather than just a matter of who your father, who your mother is, and where you were born.
That's right.
You mentioned that you did a lot of field recording as an ethnomusicologist over your during your field researchers, and I was curious to know if part of those field recordings actually became part of your music, or if you kept the world of research and music separate, sample-wise.
I see. Great. Yeah, I'll bring my field recorders as well to the field, and I'll record a couple of the instruments. And also I managed to sample one of the oldest instruments and also one of the oldest gong in the village. And I sample it back to the modular synthesizer, and I can play that in my composition. So I think my first EP called Astungkara, and the first tracks also, which is I also recorded in here for Frap Tools. I think that's also my first track, which is I'm proud to say that I used the samples, and I, behind the scene of the Astungkara, Giovanni is also composed like not more than 10 minutes with USTA, and also set the gate, and also set the CV and set the randoms, and then boom, it happens. So I think because of I have a clear ideas of what's I'm going to do with modular synthesizer, and also I know what to do with the samples, and it's become like, it's very quick. It's very good, of course, with the help of USTA. And then with the sample wise, of course, there's a couple of artifacts in the field, like the background noise, and also have to it's not quite clear if we can record in the field because there's Chichada's voice and also voice of the background noises. So I think I managed to sample one time on the evening at that time on a village, and that's what I'm used in Astunkara track, which is for Frap Tools.
Wow, awesome. And well, since we are getting a bit technical about your musical style, I think we can take a listen to the patch you made for this episode, and then we can meet again to discuss it.
Great. Okay, so let me explain the patch. So basically, USTA is the brain of this composition. So everything's being triggered, and also all the CVs and the gates and everything's from USTA. So this is incredible. So I've used USTA since its release from 2019, and I like it so much until now. I'm still using it. in my composition in modular synthesizer, so that's very good. So basically, I use all the outputs, 8 of the CVs and then also 8 of the gates, and triggering all the samples in Rosum assimilator. So I use that. For example, this is the sound of the oscillator from Buchla samples, and then the Buchla samples of the sine wave a bit lower. This is a bit different. It's called Rayhan, and this is the gong, and then kantilan, and then Rayhan as well, and then gendring, and then other Balinese gamelan I sampled as well. So all the samples I stored in here, and all the individual channels from the assimilators into the mixed up. This is the first sample, and then a mono, and then stereo, and then the rest of 4 channels. It goes into knob farm, Harlow, stereo, and basically all the 8 channels goes into this mixer. And the last channel is from the make noise morphogene. Basically all the 8 channels I pre-recorded and sampled that into morphogene. So basically this is the same, but it's being reversed to the left. This is normal. So this is normal without reverb. And then I can pitch it up, like octave up, or maybe reverse and put a delay. So if it plays together, sounds like this. And then the rest of from the mixer, it goes to this Happy Nerding FX8XL stereo, and then goes to the Cosmotronic Messer as a compressor, and then goes to the knob farm OTS as the output model, and then goes stereo into my interface. And then everything's being triggered, and then all the pitch shifting, and then stages random, and everything goes from USTA. So that's incredible.
So the first question I have about your patch is about the sounds that I have already introduced in like a few minutes ago. And so you are using the assimilator as your main voice, right?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So the samples that you have in the assimilator are made by you, right?
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what is, if you want, what is your process of like making samples and then making music with them?
Great. So there are 2 samples in there, so we can divide that into the sine wave and also the gongs itself. So the first one I sampled with the oscillator of Buchla when I was in MES in Melbourne. So there's a huge of Buchla's systems in there. So I managed to sample each of the oscillator. I forgot the name, sorry for that, but I can check and let you know later about the oscillators. But I believe that's the black knobs and also the blue knobs. I think I forgot the series of the oscillator, but I think it sounds very huge. And I sampled that through the Golden Edge preamp, MK2, I believe. And I put that straight into my audio interface. So I managed to sample 2 minutes of the sine wave, and then 2 minutes of the square wave, and then 2 minutes of the, is it pulse width or triangle? I'm not sure. So I put that in the DIW, and then I cut into 1 minute and put that in my assimilator, each of the oscillators. And I use the sine wave for the low bass voice, for example, is between like C2 and C1 to bring the low section of the frequency. So if I could play in the club, for example, there's a subwoofer, the room between it hits your chest, because of the low frequency. I think I like to play it with the lowest notes on the between C2 and C1. So I think it's very good if we play in the club, so we can bring the vibration of the room itself. So
there is nothing more disappointing than a sound system that cannot hold your frequency range, right?
you understand that, of course, yeah. So I think that's the oscillator, and also I can play with the oscillator as a higher pitch, like between C3 and C4 to bring the higher pitch of the oscillator, and then the gamelan or the gong itself, I sampled that when I was in Kalimantan. I record that with my Sennheiser MKH416, which is I'm using now in here. It's a condenser and it's a shotgun mic, but it's very good and it's very handy in the humid area, for example in Kalimantan, in Borneo. So I record that, and also I used the Rode NT5 with I think it's cardioid, which is quite close to the cone of the gong itself to capture about the sound of the percussion of the gong itself, to bring the attack, which is this microphone, to bring the low and also the ambience, because this is super cardioid as well. So it brings not only the focus to the front of the microphone, but also the idea and also the context of the sound itself. So I think that's the technical aspect and how I record the sample. And of course I have to record that on the evening, because on the afternoon and in the morning, people in the village working, and then seesaw, and then to bring their motorcycle, and it's very noisy in there in the village. So of course I have to record on the evening by the permission of the village, because I have to record like doom, and then I have to wait for a couple of seconds, doom, and then you know what happened? People from the other area and other village come, and then look at me in the room. What's happening? Is there any dead people in here? They said, because the gongs also attract people. It's also as a sign. If there's any people die in the village, they have to struck the gong like 3 times without stopping. Doom, doom. And then I have to record that, so I have to be silent. And the people from the other village come by the boat, because it's a river, and then come. No, what happened? What happened? Oh no, I've recorded a sample, I said. So they misunderstood. There's something. Someone died on the evening, so it's a bit misunderstood, and also it's a story which is quite. It's good as a story. So I think that's the technical aspect of how I record everything and becomes a sample in my sampler.
Just to know if I am following correctly, is this the same gong you were mentioning at the beginning, the one used in death rituals that hosts the blood of the animals?
Yes, but I think it's the same. It's the same type of gong, but I think the gong which is stored at the blood of the animals is a bit different, because they have to store in different location. But I think it's not the actual gong which is stored of the blood. So I think it's different gong which is as the same type, because the gong itself is quite old, Giovanni. I think it's more than like 500 years, one of the villagers mentioned. So it's not quite a common musical instrument. So for example, one village maybe only have one gong like that. So if there's any ritual or death ritual, they have to bring that from the house, which is quite old, and they have to be put the ritual in the gong itself, so it's ready to be used in the ritual. So because of the rarities and also quite old, not many people, and it's not like a musical instrument which is you can play every day. So if there's any death ritual, if there's any performance of the ritual, it's being played again and being ritual. But if it's not, they will lock it up in the store in the house.
Yeah, it's almost like maybe a church bell for Catholic countries that has a specific social function more than just a simple artistic function as any other musical instrument.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's quite similar with that, because it's being a sacred ritual, a sacred instruments also. It's not like it's not for playing for the people or not to children, but of course, if there's any ritual, so everything's become cleaned and also ready to be a ritual. So it depends if there's any event or not.
And how do you handle the pitch of this instrument in your composition? And we are slowly getting to the tuning topic, but I want to approach this topic very carefully.
This is interesting. Yeah, I know that you are also expert in this, with the pitch and everything. But I think the challenge, of course, for me at that time is the pitch itself. So I have to re-pitch that again in the AW. For example, because there's no scale or tonality which is quite fixed on the village. So it's not like a pentatonic. So there are 5 sets of gongs. Dung, 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 and it's not quite being tuned as a scale itself like pentatonic. It's not. If we see that as a Western perspective, as classical music, it's not in tune, of course. So it's not into like, what scale is this? No, of course not, because it's not meant to be played as a scale or like orchestra. But I think that's the beauty of it. So we're not being focused with the tone or the pitch itself, but I think the ambience of the ritual, of the performance ritual, the fields, and also we have to drink some like fermented rice wine, and also we have to dance in the ritual. So all the sensory aspects of the rituals itself, it affects us like a 5 senses, like eyes and then tongue. We can sense the drink itself. We can hear something. We can hear the vibration. So I think it brings the ritual experience or performance ritual experience into one. So I think if we can go back to the pitch itself, I have to retune again in the AW and then to suits with like you also here in Astungkara part. So I manage one gong and then I return to D, for example. Everything's being tuned in D and put all the samples in there so I can use the pitch from USTA to control all the scales in there. So I think it's that's the key, because at the beginning I have to, it's not quite, it's really different. I have to make a 5 pitch of the gong itself, which is, for example, D, E, and then F, and then G, A, for example. And I play with the gate. So it's quite hard to play with that. So I became, this is not the right way to play with the pitch, and especially with the USTA. So I set the gong in D, everything, the lower and then the higher, and then I set the pitch from USTA. It really helps me better to compose. So I misunderstood in how to play with that one, because it's quite hard at that time. So when I met USTA and then play, wow, this is the right instrument to play with the gong as my extension of my body in modular synthesizer. So in the way I play with modular or Eurorack, it's like a one-piece band. For example, we have a drum, we have bass, we have a guitar, for example, because USTA has 8 gates and 8 CVs, and also assimilators also 8 samples. So it really fits really good. So I have my, for example, hi-hats, I have my snare, I have my tom, I have my kick, and then I have my bass, I have my everything in there. So it means it's really really suits my composition playing with USTA as well. So it can translate what's in my head playing with traditional instrument, and through modular synthesizer it becomes, wow, this is it. So I don't have to use anymore. And then if you can see my rack or my system, it's really small, because I made that as a portable system. I can play live wherever I want, under 7 kilograms, and put that in the cabin. And also I can put in my backpack. And I think that's the idea of my system, is to portability and then to play it live, but also not to losing its context of my idea of playing music in modular synthesizer.
Mine as well. I totally agree on this matter, because I ended up with the formula that it needs me at less than half the time, less than half the concert time to set up and the stage, and to leave the stage combined. Otherwise, it's not worth playing a gig, you know? So if I have to play like half an hour and it takes me 1 hour just to set up the stage, I'm like, no. So I understand the importance of portability, especially in the world of electronic
and
music.
especially because I don't have any crews, and also doesn't have any people to help me. For example, if I play in the different locations, so I have to, this is my system, I have to plug my power, I have to plug my outputs, and that's it. So everything is being sound checked at home, you know. So I already understand about this one, and then volume and everything. So let's start. You don't need any sound check? For example, the sound engineer, no, I've already set up. Okay, let's start, for example. So I think it's very time.
And then you become the sound engineer's best friend immediately. And then,
well, this is the guy I'm looking for, they said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they are going to become all super enjoyable. And then they say, do you need anything? And that's it.
That's right.
So you mentioned that you ended up using USTA to change the pitch of your repitched samples, and I was finally I'm about to ask if you use any particular scale on the USTA sequencer, if you make your own, and these kind of things.
Yeah, so I think I have to thanks to I think the Atom? Is it the software? Atom,
yeah.
Yeah, the Atom. Yeah, I think it's very suits me well with the playing with my scale, because I have a specific scale, for example, the Sundanese scale, and then it's pentatonic from Kalimantan, for example. For example, I have to play a different scale with that, so I put that with Atom and then installed that in USTA. But I wish I could more than 4 scales in USTA, Giovanni. I think that'll be great.
Yeah,
maybe
I can understand.
8. Yeah, I think that'll be great. But I think I understand as well, that's the limit of the USTA to 4 scale. I think that's Rollo. It's already suits my scales. Of course, you have list of scale, which is huge scales in there in your manual book. When I read that the first time, wow, you have so many scales in here. But
that was Simone's approach towards scales, because I suggested to include microtonal scales, and it was like, okay, let's use them all. And so you spent so many days and nights
just fantastic
scales. But then again, if you think that you are running out of user scales, there are also 4 other scales per each of the IDOs. So I don't know which kind of, because if you are using, I don't know, maybe 12 IDO or 15 or whatever, but you have 4 scales also for the 15 IDO, 22 IDO, and 19, 22, and 24 IDOs. So basically you can program other scales. Of course, you have to calculate the offset from a different starting point. But for example, if you use the 24 IDO, it's just twice as thick as the 12 IDO. So you will have 24 microtones. And so 1 out of 2 is a semitone, and you can start offsetting your scales from there.
I see. Interesting. I should look more into that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but then again, I don't want to lead the conversation too far from the starting topic. You were talking about your scales, and I think that your setup is probably the ideal scenario to use microtonal scales in the Eurorack world, because you have a digital sound source, and so you can be a bit more confident about the output, because if you were using, for example, analog oscillators whose tracking might not be always perfect, if you are focusing on 5 cents difference, but the difference between the average note, but then the actual oscillator has a deviation of 5 cents, it becomes a bit more tricky. And actually, in the previous episode, where I interviewed Trevor Trellia, he is working on just intonation at the moment, and he's using the USTA as well, but he got rid of the whole scales concept, and he just uses raw voltages, because his voices are analog, and he was like, okay, I'm just trusting my ears, and when I find the note that's in tune, I just go for it. So
all or nothing, yeah. That's why I'm considering Brainsaw as well, because Brainsaw has a features that can lock the the oscillators, right? The pitch, right? Is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah,
Yeah. So I was considering that, but then when I was in modular grid and I, have a draft of my rack, and then wow, it's become huge. It's become quite bigger, like portable. But I'm considering in the future if I have like a second system, I will consider the like analog oscillators, and also not playing in samples and feel the timbre and the organics of the analog oscillator. I think I'm considering that so much, but in the meantime, I think this is quite portable, and also I don't have to worry about the pitch and then the definition like you've mentioned, because everything is being digital. And then I'm not a purist that it's not quite thick. The sound, of course, is digital. Of course, I'm not quite purist, but I think at the moment is I have to enjoy, and I'm the first thing first that I'm enjoying playing this system, and the composition is quite quick. It's very quick because of the helps of USTA. I think it's just incredible sequencer, and the circular of the USTA, it brings so much inspiration that from start and then end start, and then because I played a couple of sequencers back in the past, like track system and track style, I think it's just bring me 4 and then 16 and then 8. I think it's just like make me stuck at the moment. So with playing with the USTA, I think circular, and then in the beginning, I have to, it brings me to the like the concept of reincarnation, for example, because when we have to born to the world and then we manage to be an adult, and then we go and then we go back again, and then we have to live again, death again, live again. I think to look up with the philosophy of the USTA, in my perspective, I think it brings me to the so much inspiration to connect with my ideas of playing music in modular, and as an ethnomusicologist as well, Giovanni.
Wow, that's amazing. So thank you very much. And you are, from what I saw in your videos, your instrument that you built also for like as an extension of your musical practice, and with the main scope of portability, seems to be very fixed in terms of patching with the tendrils cables. And I was curious to learn more about your approach. Do you still patch as you were doing like in your research years that you mentioned in the beginning? Do you still use the cables, or you have reached a sort of instrument design that's satisfying and that you tend to leave it untouched most of the time?
Wow, that's interesting. And also I've been thinking this a lot too, because yes, when I use tendrils, I think the first one, the intention of using tendrils is become playing live, because when I used a straight cable at that time, I can't play with the knobs because all the cables with the straight knobs is covering all the knobs, and then the potential and all the faders, because it's become, because I also really like to play it live and tweak on the fly, and also pitching on the fly on live, because I think it just brings me the intention of playing live music. So when I found tendrils, and then wow, this is really good because I have some kind of fixed patch in that time, but I also have bring my straight cables when I'm playing live, so I can play patching live when I was playing live, for example, connecting all the like the LFOs to pitch, and then LFOs to randomize and stuff like that. So I think at the same point I can play like I have a fixed patch, but if I'm playing live, I bring my straight cables, and then I can modify it on the fly as I want to modify everything. But I think if it's become fixed, of course, but the lines of the patch, it become fixed, but the idea, I think I can connect, and I can bring all the pitches from USTA, for example, to assimilator. So everything's happened internally and is being changed internally compared to we can see physically about the patch and cables. So I think even though the fix or the patch is fixed, but I think what happens internally on the system, I think it's just change every day as I play other instruments. For example, I've mentioned you the other day that I've explored techno music, for example.
Yeah,
So the
that would have
patch,
been my next question, actually. So please, let's talk
yeah,
about techno.
yeah. Even though the patch is like that, like you've seen on my Astunkara patch, everything is being connected from USTA to assimilator to mixer and everything. But what happens inside there? It's just different ideas and different brains of my composition. So I think that's the interesting thing what happens in modular synthesizer. Even though we can connect physically by the cables and the page cables, what I think the brains itself, what happened in the system, I think is just interesting, and we can play differently every day, literally.
Because in the previous interview, Trevor brought up the concept of the early days of electronic music, of a patch being an instrument definition. So whenever you make a patch, you are like defining your instrument besides just creating the music. So it's like a more primordial level of music making than just picking an instrument and playing. But then again, even if the instrument, you are now expanding this concept, because even if the instrument definition is the same, like the structure is the same, the way you can make it interact it has still a lot of room to explore. Like you said, with the same instrument, you can play the Baséput traditional and electronic mixture. You can play techno, and without even mostly touching a cable, and that is like a fascinating concept.
Yeah, yeah. I think maybe other people, of course, has a different perspective and opinion in how to play the modular, because some of my friends also said that it has to be patched right away. If you finish playing today, unpatch everything, let it clean, and then tomorrow you have to patch again. So that's playing modular synthesizer. So some people think that, also some people think like me, for example. But I think, in my understanding, whatever the concepts and whatever the instrument, as long as you have the idea and the intention of the goal, the sound, what we'd like to reach in the future, I think that's the most interesting one. Because I've seen a lot of my friends that trap in modular synthesizer or Eurorack world, that because they seen this performance of ambient music, for example, because of they seen of this techno music on YouTube, so they become buy some modules that maybe, okay, this module is good, and then boom, the rack is there. But they don't know what to do about that. For example, okay, I'm playing techno music, okay, techno, and then because the intention is quite strong, of course, I'm going to play ambient, for example. I'm not saying that this is wrong or not, but if we have the intention of the goal of music we would like to play, what like to do in the future, for example, I think it's just really saving time, saving money, of course, and then saving everything. For example, I know what to do with modular synthesizer. I would like to play traditional music, but in terms of Eurorack. So I think that's the intention. So I become very quick with the samples and everything. And yeah, it's there. But if I'm just playing music and I don't know what to do, what kind of genre, what kind of different of improvisation, for example, it will, kills my time right away, and I being trapped in then selling and buying stuffs, and then I think it's just not quite good for me. But I think for some people, of course, the intention, for example, I would like to release music, but some people playing Eurorack, maybe they don't want to release any music. They just have to playing in the room and then playing peacefully. I think it's also good, but I think the intention, that what makes differences.
As long as the purpose is clear, it can be whatever purpose, and then you are good to go. But I agree that recently there has been this idea that Eurorack is almost the modular synthesizer is the universal answer to all the problems in music, which is of course not the case. I mean, it is always, it must serve a purpose, and to some, I for example, I follow yours, the same approach as yours, even though the way I play the modular synthesizer is the opposite. I am more of a musician who unpatches everything, and maybe I like to focus on creating the same patch over and over again to see how it changes from one time and the other, but there are plenty of other tasks that I have to do that I just do straight in Logic Pro or Ableton Live because it's faster. As we said in the beginning, the instrument needs to make you save time, not waste time. Well, of course, it's not a waste of time if you are enjoying the process, but if it becomes a source of frustration, then there is something wrong somewhere.
That's right, because the idea is really fast. If we don't record and it's very quick, in being erased from our minds. So for example, if I have any ideas, okay, I have this one idea, I have to fire up my system and then put the audio interface in Logic Pro, and I have to record that right away, because if I have to tune this one first and then it's become distracting, so I have to find a solution how to record. For example, record in being stereo. For example, people also like from their modular stereo in and out to audio interface. I think it's only 2 channel. That's good. And also I've tried like 8 channels, like with ADAT and then AD80 through my audio interface, and 10 channels. Okay, it's good. I have separations of my channels, but it becomes overwhelming, and then it's become time consuming to mix all that tracks.
For example.
So okay, this is not good for me. Okay, I have to mix everything in my system and then stereo in, and that's it.
Yeah, I do the same. I mean, it's fun to think that you can then mix and compress your tracks separately.
Yes.
But then again, you ask yourself why.
That's right.
Because I mean, just to obtain the same effect as you would obtain straight away with just a left and right couple. So why just work 8 extra hours to get to the same endpoint?
That's right. And also the feeling, Giovanni. I think with the stereo track, I think the feelings what's inside there. For example, if I record Astungkara in 10 minutes and then tomorrow I record Astungkara again, it's different. It's different feeling that, okay, I have to improvise in this minute. I have to make this one into this like ratchet in this one with USTA. And then in tomorrow I play the Astungkara track again. It becomes different, because that's the beauty of the modular, I think. Even though it's the same instrument, same patching, but the intention of the improvise something and then to add something is quite different and based on the feeling itself. I think it's just like you're playing piano, for example, playing this composition, and then you manage to, okay, I'm going to improvise 2 bars in here or 4 bars. I think it's just what happens on the zone itself. So I think it's just interesting to see the like improvisation in the middle of the composition with modular.
You have mentioned Astungkara, which we have briefly heard here and there throughout this interview, and that I will also link in the episode description. But you briefly hinted at your current techno exploration, so please, if you want to expand on that topic.
Oh yes, yeah. So yeah, you know what? As a musician, of course, we have the level of the stress and then level of the boredom. That okay, I play ambient, I play traditional music, and I'm playing soundscape and noise. It becomes, why don't I just try different things? For example, techno, because I think it's there's also different technos and also different eras of technos, of course. But I straight into like Detroit techno, for example. I think it's quite interesting to learn about how the pioneers of techno music to compose techno music at that time compared to now. For example, we have the for example, techno in Berlin. For example, I've never been to Berlin, so I don't know about the scene of the techno itself, but I listen to from the YouTube, from the podcast. I think it's quite interesting to bring that techno's music. So when I play my techno music, I just play straight with my samples. So I have a samples that I got it from my friends, also like a kicks of the 909 or 808. And then, but I also still use the gamelan instruments between that, and also still using the Buchla's oscillator samples as a bass. And also, yeah, because the idea to play techno music is to try something new in my composition in modular synthesizer, and I went to different communities in technos and then to learn that through YouTube. I think it's quite wide, and also I'm still learning. I'm still learning about that technos, and it's how to the techniques, for example, like we mentioned about to play in different the signature times, for example, not only 4 but on the 5, as play in 7, for example, with the melody itself. So it's become the infinite loop of the melody. I think it's interesting, different techniques, how to play the rumble kick, for example, in the back of the tracks, like the constant kick, like, and we have to mix that differently. I think it's quite interesting to see a different approach and how to bring the rumble kicks into a different peoples. I think so. I'm still learning. I'm not quite say that I'm an expert in techno, of course not, but I'm still learning how to play the techno music.
Yeah, I like this approach, and I like the fact of like the importance of not being an expert in a certain topic, which is a feeling that I personally like a lot, because it's like when there is the thrill of having something new to learn every day, which is also part. I think it's very similar to the whole academic research thing. You know, when you know you're on a path, but you're not arrived yet, but you see the progress you're making every day. You're like slowly unfolding a topic, and that's, I mean, it is something which is really invaluable, and it is very similar to practicing and learning new stuff and learning also new instruments. Which is something that I also like to do, you know, getting a new instrument and learn how to play that. You always learn something that you can transfer to your other music, and this applies also when learning instruments or when learning new genres, as you are telling us.
I think for me, it's important to note that for example, album or playing live or releasing something, I think it's just a bonus. But I think for me, it's the most important one for me. I think it's the process itself, to encounter new friends, for example, new communities, and new understanding of how to play music. I think just the beauty of the playing music. So music can brings me to other different countries and different communities. I think the bonus, it's like a roller coaster, and then you up, oh that's good, and then you down again, oh it's not interesting, and then you up again, wow, okay, it's different feelings, you know, playing music, and then whatever all the genders and forms of the music itself, whether a traditional music or modular synthesizer. I think the outputs of the playing live or album releasing something is just a bonus, but I think the beauty of it, that's along the journey I encountered you, Giovanni, and Simone from Frap Tools, and other new friends in electronic music, which is very kind to me and to able to teach me through the internet. And then, you know, it's just amazing all the of how the UREC communities works, and it's just like different bondings, and then also it's just very kind. It's very kind. I've never met someone which is quite rude in UREC or modular communities. It's just, you know, really, really, really good for me so far.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, I don't think that the album or playing live is simply a bonus. I think that, I mean, if you are talking about, you know, the whole like music industry mindset, then I agree. It's not necessary. But I think that it is important during a creative journey to let go of some of your music and to put it out in the world, because at a certain point your music is no longer yours alone, and it's also of part of your audience, and you need to, you know, to separate yourself from the past, and which is it's a very it's very dramatic moment when you release an album, because it's, you know, it's like, you know, sending your children in the world. I mean, they're no longer your children. I mean, they're out there and living their life. But I think that this is also a very important moment during this journey. But then I also agree that the most important part is the journey itself.
Thank you, Giovanni, for pointing out. Yeah, I agree with that also. It's really important also to have the releases in the future as an artist, I think, because yeah, they're no longer our parts as well, and they will choose each of the ears in the world, so in the wild, of course.
Thank you very much for this fascinating conversation. And I'd like to wrap everything up by asking the question that we ask all the times. And if you were able to choose the next Frap Tools module, what would it be?
Wow. Okay. I have 3 different answers. I hope that's okay. So the first one, I think the first one, this is my dream. It's a sampler, of course, from Frap Tools, because I think that'll be great to coordinate in the Frap Tools ecosystems with the USTA, and then we have the mixers, and then the Kunsa, of course. That's also one of my dreams of the samples as well in the future. Kunsa also. I think the samplers also will open up the like similarities and also all the options in the Frap Tools ecosystem. So I think samplers is also, I think I can imagine if it will be happening in 2024 or not, but maybe in the future, I think that'll be great. And also
certainly not 2024.
I hope so in the near future.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah, I think so. That'll be great. And then number 2, I think this is a bit classic, but I think theremin. Theremin, I think, but of course in the Frap Tools way and Frap Tools design and Frap Tools ideas, it's not only theremin and also not only the resurrecting about the old theremin, but I think that'll be great if you can maybe incorporate that with the different aspects in Frap Tools. I think that'll be great. Not only a standard theremin, but I think to I don't know, maybe you can answer that with theremin, but different aspect. And also the last one, I think that'll be great if you can Frap Tools and to bring about the granular synthesis. Of course, I think it's also one of the aspects of the synthesis methods, of course, back in the past and also until now. But of course, granular synthesis, which is incorporated with the Frap Tools ecosystems, and also difference of the which is already made by other companies. I think you can manage 3 of them in the future, Giovanni and Frap Tools team.
Wow,
that's my dreams.
Yeah, I mean, they were excellent suggested, quite demanding in terms of R&D, I would say.
Hopefully, all the best.
I can also hear Simone's ears ringing when we mentioned the granular synthesis, because it's one of his fields of studies back in the days, and he is very strict on what is granular synthesis and what is not, right, because you have to go down to the grain of sound and this kind of thing. But these are excellent suggestions, especially the theremin. I was curious to see, I mean, with the sampler, I know your music is very much sampling based. And I can also see something of granular synthesis, for example, in the way you use maybe the morphogene that you have and you showcase in the patch. But what about the theremin?
I think I will use it, for example, if there's a theremin from Frap Tools, because I also incorporated my vocal singing in modular synthesizer. I also sample it live through, for example, morphogene and also in assimilator. So I record that live in morphogene and I chop all the samples and then use all the parameters in there. So with theremin, I think I will use it as like a vocal. So I can play that in scale, for example, maybe with the help of, maybe this is my 4th dreams in Frap Tools, is USTA Mark II maybe in the future, I don't know. So maybe you can incorporate that with scale with the theremins itself. So whenever we're playing in the scale with the theremin itself, everything is being quantized in with the USTA or maybe in the theremins in there. So we can play, for example, a pentatonic So I can recreating my vocal stuff with the theremin. For example, if theremin is the tools itself, but the sound sampling or maybe sound oscillator, we can use Brainso, for example. So everything is being connected with your ecosystem and environments of Frap Tools. I think that'll be great, Giovanni.
Wow.
Go.
Wow. Well, Rayhan, I think that we can cap it here for today, and we will meet again in Frap Tools studio, where I will try to create a patch based on all the things that we discussed today, and let's see if I can create something in the style of Baséput.
Oh,
and,
that'll be an honor for me.
We will see. After we say goodbye, there will be I will edit the patch in this podcast and in this video. And for now, I think that I will just say thank you very much for joining us with this chat.
You're welcome, Giovanni, and thank you, Frap Tools teams, for adding me into these wonderful episodes. And I believe in the future there will be so much, interesting speakers and also fascinating musicians in modular synthesizer. I'm looking forward to learn more from your educational contents and the videos on YouTube. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we are back in Frap Studio, and this is the patch that this conversation inspired me. So since I don't have a sampler here and I've got an analog only setup, I had to be much more cautious as to how many voices and how many sound effects to use. So I choose to focus on three key elements. Very powerful bass, which is here on channel 2 of the CGM. Instead of a sine wave, I used a filtered sawtooth with some resonance and a tracking filter that you can hear. And the second element I want to focus on is the sine wave somehow acting as a middle voice, which I put here. And I achieved that with a self-oscillating filter. And I sent the envelope to the resonance amount, to the Q amount, so that the attack has a sort of glide. And then I also added an actual glide into the volt per octave signal. So by playing with the envelope, I can define the attack and also the glide, and somehow the glide between the notes. And I soaked it into a delay plus reverb that I programmed on the Empress Zoya. And it sounds like this. And the third element was, of course, the sample of a mallet instrument, of a percussion instrument that is a key signature of Baséput's sound. And I achieved that with a through zero FM patch on the Brainsaw oscillator that sounds like this. This is filtered as well. Here's without this is reverberated as well. This is without reverb. And I randomized some notes so that both the note and the FM ratio gets different, but I programmed an envelope to control both the FM amount and the filter to which the sound is patched. And by using a Kunsa's integrator, I have been able to give to the filter a longer curve than the one going to the FM amount, so it has a very natural kind of decay. I set the filter to 24 dB per octave, but maybe now that I think about it, also 12 could work great with a more sparkling kind of sound. And to mimic the morphagene with a reversed playback of Baséput's samples, I patched the sample and hold, which is triggered by this sequence that we are hearing right now, to the envelope attack. And so it will transform, I'm gonna manually play it, it will transform a very percussive sound into its reversed copy, like this. So it's a fake reverse that I made in analog. And if we soak it into the reverb, it sounds like this. And everything all together sounds like this. I added some degree of randomization to this melody as well, and I also randomized the gates playing the percussion. On top of that, I just added a pinch of swing to the whole track, just 3%, but everything just to make everything more glued together and with a more human feeling. I thank you very much for staying with us for this very interesting conversation, and make sure to listen also to the past episodes. They are available on Spotify, Google, and YouTube, and all the major streaming platforms. My name is Giovanni Grandi, and thank you for listening. Let's Talk Music with Frap Tools.